Splitting a database is taking a database and dividing it into two, where you get a front end and a back end. On the front end, it contains all the objects like queries, forms, and reports that the front end user is going to be using, and it's going to be linked to the back end, which contains only the tables storing the raw data. Now, if it's not linked, then on the front end, when somebody opens up the form or report, they won't be able to pull over any data. The back end is going to be stored on a server that's accessible across the network on the front end that's going to be stored on a user's local machine or computer. So for example, if you have 20 users that need access to the database here, we can go ahead and copy the front end database 20 times and go ahead and store it on their local computers, that they can access the raw data across the network, the back end database on the server. Now, why would I want to go ahead and split the database? I can think of 4 benefits. One is improved performance, where only the shared data is being sent across the network when you have a split database, as opposed to all the data and the objects being sent across, because remember, the front end database has the objects stored on the front end, so that doesn't have to be sent across. Only the data that's being used that we're pulling across from the tables on the back end. So that way, we don't slow the network down. Second of all is reliability, where if the front-end user encounters a problem or a corrupted file on the front-end database, it's usually limited to that copy, so we can go ahead and replace that on the user's local computer without affecting everybody else. Third of all is the flexibility, where the front-end user can create their own forms and queries and store them in their front-end database there without affecting all the other users. So if Bob wants to create 20,000 forms, great. He's the one that has to manage his front-end database on his computer. And then finally, for the admin, he only has to deal with one copy of the database to manage and protect, which is the back end here. That stores the table and all the raw data within the tables. So to go ahead and split the database, it's really simple. Just come up here, click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Move Data group, and there it is, Access Database. You can see the first cylinder and how it's just splitting it into two, the front end, the back end. Go ahead and click on it, and it says, do you want to split the database now? Yes, go ahead and click Split Database. And then what it's going to do, it's going to take the name of the original database before it's being split, and that's going to be known as the front end. So it says, okay, I've got the front end now. What I want to do, as you can see up here, I want to create the back end. It's going to have the same name as the front end, but with a little extension there, an underscore BE for back end. So if you like that, go ahead and just click split. If you don't, then just type in whatever makes sense to you. This is my back end database. I'm going to go ahead and click split. Okay. And now you're looking at the front end. How do you know? Well, a couple of indicators are. Up at the top it doesn't say integration underscore BE for backend. Second of all, you've got tables. Wait a second, you said that there weren't going to be any tables in the front end. Well, actually there's not. Because if you look to the left hand side of the table, you got these arrows. That means it's linked to the table stored in the back end. In fact, you can see when I hover over that table there, it's got that little pop-up address, and at the end of the address it says integration. Let me do this again. Integration underscore BE for backend. That's where it's pointing it to. So when you open up a form here, it goes to the table here, and this table says, I'm not actually storing anything, so you'll have to see this table that I'm linked to stored in the back end across the network on the company server. Now, as a side note, if you're going to be creating switchboards, which if you haven't watched my training videos on that and you don't know what they are, then you can go ahead and watch it, that you want to go ahead and create your switchboard after you split the database, because it's best if the switchboard table resides on the front end and not the back end. Like my switchboard here, you see the arrow pointing to the left hand side. That means it's stored in the back end, and this is just a link to it. So go ahead and split your database, and then if you're going to create a switchboard, create it on the front end. And of course, when you create it, the switchboard items table will be stored without linking to the back end because it's going to be on the front end. Okay, so this is the front end. Let's go ahead and close out. Double click and open up the exercises folder, and my front end was simply the original name of the database, integration, and there's the back end, BE, double click, and it only stores the tables that the front end is linking to. Now once we split our database into the front end and the back end, we want to go ahead and give a copy to all those users who would like to have access to the database. We're going to give them the front end, that is. That's going to be linked to the back end, so we can go ahead and click and drag it. If we copied it to a flash drive or a DVD and drag it to their desktop here to create a copy of it, and then for the back end, we're going to go ahead and store that on the network. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the network, go to my storage drive, to my share folder, and then click and drag my back end to it. The next thing that we need to do is to go ahead and hook up the front end or link it to the data contained in the back end here. So to do that, let me go ahead and close out of these folders here. And you'll do this on every computer that has a copy of the front-end database. Double-click on it, open it up, and then go ahead and right-click on any table. And when you right-click, you want to go down and select Linked Table Manager. It opens up and it shows you the current address that these tables are linked to. The customers table is linked to the customers table on the back end here. Remember, these aren't actual tables, they're just links. So I want to go ahead and select all of them and prompt for a new location. And that new location is going to be on the network. So click OK, and it says, okay, where's this new location? Over in the navigation pane, click on the network. Then come over here and go ahead and let's go to our network drive, to its share folder, and there it is. Go ahead and double click on it. And there we go. Everything's linked successfully. Cool. So now it's pointing to my network drive, the share folder, the backup database there. So you can see the address. It's my network drive in the share folder on the network drive to the backup database that's stored in that share folder. And like I said, you want to do that to every computer that has the front-end database there to be able to link it up correctly to the back-end on the network. First of all, I want you to know that Access 2010 does not support user-level security for databases created in earlier versions of Access. I'm not talking about 2007, but earlier than that, 2003, XP 2000. So those of you who want to be able to use that in 2010, unless it was created earlier, it's not going to be available for you in 2010. Here, I want to talk about how we can set up a trusted location folder that whenever we open up a database that has macros in it, that instead of always giving me the prompt or security alerts, I can go ahead and say, well, if it's in this folder, this is a trusted folder, don't give me those security alerts. Not only that, we can actually make the document trusted. For example, if I open up integration here, it gives me the security warning because there's some macros in here that it disabled. Why is it giving it to me now when in all the previous training videos I didn't get this prompt? Well, because I went ahead and I changed the alerts here by coming up here, clicking on the File tab, going to Options, coming over here, clicking on Trust Center, and then going over and clicking on the button, Trust Center Settings. And then here where it says Message Bar, it was never show information about block content. What was blocked? Well, it was the macro to disable all macros, but with notification. So it disables it, and the notification is the message bar that when I set it to go ahead and show me the message, displays the message or the notification. So let me go ahead and click OK, and that's what's being pulled up here. Now, if I enable the content, it's going to make this always trusted. How do I know? Well, if you click on the File tab, another way to do this is come down here to the Info, and then over to the right where it says Security Warning, click on Enable Content. When you click on that in the main screen, not in the backstage here, it's the same as clicking on this one right here to enable all content, which means always enable this document's active content. In other words, make this a trusted document. The other option is the advanced options. When you click on it, it says, okay, instead of making this always a trusted document by clicking on Enable All up at the top or in the backstage, you can go ahead and say, okay, enable this content for this session only. And then when I'm done, when I double click on it, give me the warning again. Or go ahead and help me protect me from unknown content. So when you click OK and you try to open up a macro, it's going to go, no, I don't trust the macros, so I'm going to go ahead and disable it. So you got a couple of options to choose from, okay? That is when you get these security warnings. So if I go ahead and click Cancel and click on Enable Content, this will always be a trusted document. So if I close out of integration, open it back up, I don't get the warning. But if I close out of this and open up another database that contains macros, I get the warning because this one, back again to integration, is now trusted. So when I open it up and let's say that I want to turn that trusting off for this document, click on File, go down to Options, click on Trust Center, go to Trust Center Settings, and then come up here where it says Trusted Documents, and you can go ahead and clear it. And it says, do you want to go ahead and clear it for all trusted documents? Because it doesn't keep a list here of trusted documents, so it's either all or nothing. Let's go ahead and say yes. Click OK, click OK. Then when I close out of here and open up the same file, it's no longer trusted, and so I have to do it all over again. Now that was a file. What about a folder? I can go ahead and set it up for a folder where anything I put into that folder is going to be trusted. So if I come up here, click on the File tab, go to Options again, click on Trust Center, come over here and click on the Trust Center Settings, and there's the Trusted Locations. I can go ahead and select a new location because right now the only location that's trusted is, well, Office 14 or Office 2010. So it says, okay, go ahead and find that folder, click on Browse. Let me go to my desktop, and it's going to be my exercises folder. Click OK, click OK, click OK, click Alright, close out. So when I open it back up again, it's trusted. Any file in that folder is trusted. And then to go ahead and remove this folder, the exercises folder that is a trusted folder, click on Options, go to Trust Center, click on Trust Center Settings. There we go, Trusted Locations, select it, and let's go ahead and remove it. And then what I do is that I go to the message bar and I say never show the message, and for the macro settings, enable all of them. I mean, that's dangerous. I don't recommend it, but I do it because all the databases that I created, I trust. If I get it from you or somebody else, then okay, that's a different story. When it comes to opening up a database, it's pretty simplistic. I mean, just go to the folder, double-click on the file to open it up, or better yet, they have different access modes to your database. For example, click on the File tab, go to Open, and then go ahead and select a file that you want to open up, and instead of just double-clicking on it, come down here and click on the corresponding drop-down arrow next to the Open button. You have all these different access modes. Besides the generic Open, you also have Open Read Only, which means that once you open it up, you can only read it. You can't make any changes to it. So if I open up a table, try to come in here and delete, type over it, it doesn't allow me to do it. And that can be good for if you hired on a new employee and you want them to become familiar with this database. Open it up in read only. That way when they come in here and they accidentally hit a key, it's not like oops. And then if they want to go ahead and make changes, they have to go ahead and save it under a different file name. That way it doesn't overwrite any changes they make the original file here. Let's go ahead and click on File, go back to Open. Let me go ahead and select the integration file, click on Open. We have Open Exclusive, which we went over in an earlier training video when it came to setting a password to our database. But in short, when you open it up exclusively, only you have access to the database in read and write mode. No other user can open up this database. Then we have Open Exclusive Read Only, which is interesting because when you do this, everybody, including you, has access to it, but can only read it. They can't make any changes to it. And then Show Previous Versions. If there are earlier versions that were saved or backed up by your operating system, it'll show it. So let's go ahead and select it. There we go. There's one yesterday. There's one a long time ago. And I can go ahead and open it up and see what the earlier version was, what the changes were as compared to yesterday's version, and keep the one that I want, maybe save that to a folder so I can go ahead and have access to it without having to come back here into earlier versions of it. Now, I'm not covering how to code your Access database with Visual Basic Application Code, but if you want to prevent unauthorized users from deleting, editing, or copying your VBA code, this is how you do it. Come up here, click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Macro group, click on Visual Basic, then come up here, click on Tools, and go down to, well, mine's Database 1 Properties. Click on it, go to the Protection tab, and then check Lock Project for Viewing. And for the password, go ahead and type in a password. I'm going to keep it simple so I can remember it. Pass, and then click OK. Then we can come up here, click on File to close and return to our Access database. And then if we close out and later on, let me go ahead and double click and open it up again. My folder, there it is, Integration, double click. And I want to go ahead and remove it. Then it's the same place again. Database Tools to Visual Basic, Tools to Database 1 Properties. And there we go. Got to have the password to be able to have access to it, and to even remove the password, let's go ahead and type it in. Hit enter. We can go to the Protection tab, delete the password, go ahead and uncheck Lock for Viewing, click OK, and we're back to where we started. It's no longer protected. But you can see that without that password, nobody can delete your code, edit, or copy it. And then File and close and return back to our Microsoft Access database here. If somebody wants a copy of your database, but you're concerned about them being a stinker, copying all your codes and modifications and then calling it their own, well, there's a level of protection that you can offer it by converting your database from the default database file type with the extension .ACCDB into the protected .ACCDE. If you don't know what extensions are, then I recommend that you watch my Windows 7 training video on extensions. In any case, the additional benefits to converting it to a .ACCDE file is that it will reduce the size of the database Second, optimize memory usage and improve performance. Third, protects the VBA code from being viewed or edited while allowing it to run. And fourth, allows users to update data, run reports without providing your entire database. To get more specific about the forms, reports, and modules is that they can't view, modify, or create them in the design view. They can't add, delete, or change references to your database or object libraries. They can't change the source code, and they can't import or export forms, reports, or code modules. So it's quite a bit of protection there that we can go ahead and have when we convert it to the ACCDE file. So to go ahead and convert it, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Save and Publish, then come over here and click on Make ACCDE. The file will be compiled into an executable only file, so a lot of protection there. Go ahead and double click on it. It opens up and says, okay, what's the name of the file? We can call it, protected. And then there's the file type, ACCDE. Click Save, and then we can go ahead and close out. Go to my exercises folder. There it is, protected. You can see the different extension there, and it's got a little lock, so it's indicative of something being protected there. Select it, double click on it to open it up. Let's go ahead and right click, go to, oh, I can't get to the design view. Like I said, there's a lot that they can't do. This is probably the better option as opposed to just handing them over your original database. The package and sign feature is used to attach a digital certificate to the database here to verify that whoever you're sending it to, that you're the source, that you're actually who you are. Because we wouldn't want to open up a database from somebody who we didn't know and trust, because it has all this coding that can shut down and destroy our computer. Also, this will compress all the objects in the database into a .accdc file package, which makes it nice if it's compressed. It doesn't take as long to email it than if it was uncompressed. In any case, before we can go ahead and use the package and sign feature, we have to create a digital VBA certificate. How do you create one? Well, you would actually go online and search for a third-party CA or certificate of authority, somebody who provides digital VBA certificates, and then go ahead and pay whatever fees that they have and then follow their instructions to install it on your computer. Because if I go ahead and try to do it without that digital VBA certificate, like come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Save and Publish, come over here and click on Package and Sign, and then click on Save As, it goes, we don't have a certificate. Otherwise, if we did have one and we installed it on the computer, it would list it here. Let me go ahead and click Cancel. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and go through a third party here, but I recommend that you do, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But to go ahead and create that digital certificate, I'm going to come down here, click on the Start button, go to All Programs, scroll down and go to my Microsoft Office here, scroll down and select Microsoft Office 2010 Tools, and click on Digital Certificate for VBA Projects. Now you can see in that pop-up that this program creates a self-signing digital certificate. Now, self-signing means that it's only valid on the machine that you signed it on. So if I send this application off to somebody else, it's not going to work. So in any case, I'm bringing this up so you can have an idea of what to expect. So you want to do some research. In any case, let's go ahead and click on it to open it up. And it says, what's your certificate's name? Let's call it the Cert Database Certificate, or DB. Click OK. And then it says it was successfully created. Go ahead and click OK. And again, it's only valid for this computer. So to go ahead and package and sign it now that we have a digital certificate, click on the File tab, go to Save and Publish, come over here, click on Package and Sign, click on Save As. There's mine, CurtDB. Going to go ahead and click OK. Now it opens it up, and it's going to go ahead and compress the contents of my database here into another file type. Instead of the .accdb, it's now the .accdc. So it's going to go ahead and compress it into this different file type and also be digitally signed. So go ahead and click Create. It's going to create it in my Exercises folder. And that's it. Let me go ahead and close out of here. Go to my Exercises folder. And there it is. In fact, it's kind of small here. Let me click and drag it outside. And you can see that little ribbon there. That means it's digitally signed. Now, because I used the digital signature that came with Microsoft Office here, it's only valid for this computer. Well, if I go ahead and send it off, then it's not valid. So I have to have somebody else come to my computer and log on later and say, okay, this was by me, from this computer. In any case, we can go ahead and double click and open it up. And then it says, note the digital signature is valid, but the signature is from a publisher whom you've not yet chosen to trust. Do you trust me? Go ahead and click trust all from the publisher, and then when you do that, it wants to decompress what was compressed inside that .ACCDE, in which case let me go ahead and select the desktop, click Okie dokie. It extracts it from the .ACCDC, and it opens up, and that's what we're looking at. And I extracted it to the desktop, so when I close out, you can see the difference between the two. The one that's signed, that's compressed, and the one that, after I opened it up and I trusted it, decompressed it, extracted it over here to this side of my desktop. The next couple of training videos are going to be about SharePoint, how we can go ahead and upload our database to the site, or even an object within our database like a table here. And for those of you who don't know what SharePoint is, well, to oversimplify, it's a website. A site that allows authorized users, those who have a username and password, to be able to upload, share, and manage documents or applications like Access on the SharePoint server there, or again, the SharePoint site. Now, if your company doesn't have one and you want to be able to set one up for your company, but you don't want to purchase the server, maybe you want to be able to outsource it, you can do an internet search for SharePoint hosting services or providers, and I think for as little as $10 or $15 a month, depending upon the options or how many employees you want to be able to have access to the SharePoint server. For one, I think it's about $10. You can go ahead and have them provide it for you and do the hosting, and that way you don't have to purchase the server and set it up. You could just pay them a monthly fee and then just jump right on into it. So to get started, to be able to upload this table, the products table, to that SharePoint site, because maybe I want to do some collaboration with some contractors who don't have access, and of course we won't give them access to our company network, about the products that we're looking at producing or products that are obsolete. So to go ahead and upload it, let's go ahead and close out, select the table, come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Export group, click on the More drop-down arrow, and click on SharePoint List. Now by default I already have it set up here because I've been using it. If this is your first time, I think it'll have an empty box up at the top, or if not down at the bottom, that you can go ahead and type in the SharePoint URL or website address. If you don't have it, get it from your IT person, or if you've outsourced this to a hosting service, then go ahead and get it from them. Type it in, and then down below specify a name for the new list here. By default it's going to be the name of the table here that we're uploading, the products table. You can go ahead and change that, and then a description if you'd like. And then below that, it has by default checked open the list when finished. So after I open up the table, it'll actually open up and list all the records within the table. And then as a side note, you ought to know that when it comes to exporting a table, if this table has a direct relationship to any other table, it will upload that as well. So you want to keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and click OK. And you can see it's uploading the category table in addition to the products table because it's directly related. And then once it uploads, to view the page, it wants me to log in again. Wow, great security here. And then I'm going to go ahead and check to remember my credentials, click OK. And there we go, there's the products here. Fantastic. Now some of the things that you can do after you upload it and you're sharing this and somebody else logs in, they'll see the same thing here. They can go ahead and come up here and click on the Items tab to add a new item or a new record here. They can also go ahead and check a record to delete. Well, we call it a record in Access, but here on the SharePoint it's an item. And then some of the other limited functionalities when it comes to working with this on the SharePoint server as opposed to within the database. Database is more powerful, the Access database. You can hover over the column header and click on the drop-down arrow to be able to sort it, and then also do some minor filtering here if I just want to see all those products with Air Mattress here. And it's just one. You get the idea. Then to clear it, just click on the drop-down arrow and say that you want to clear it. And then if I want to go ahead and delete it, this is a bit tricky because remember, not only did it upload the products table, but it also said it'll upload any related tables to the products. So if I come over here to delete this table and click on the list, which is where you want to go to delete the table, then come over here to the settings group, click on list settings. It's not simple, is it? You have to come over here and then click on delete this list. When I click on it, it says, we can't do it because it's related to the category table. Well, the way around that is to go ahead and delete the lookup column. In other words, there's a column in here in the product table, and it's called the lookup column that looks up the corresponding category tied to each product. So if we delete the lookup column by clicking on the category ID there, scroll down to the bottom, and you can read about the relationship between this table and the other, and how right now it's enforced. Let's go ahead and delete it. And it says, okay, you sure you want to do this? Well, yeah, because then after I do that, I can go ahead and delete this table here, because it's no longer related or hooked up to the category. Let me scroll down. There's the category table that came with the product table. Then I can go ahead and click on that. Also come over here to the list tab, go to the settings group, click on list settings, and then delete that one as well. Which, by the way, the overview when it comes to looking at SharePoint, unless your IT person's gone in here and made some major layout changes, is that you got the navigation pane over to the left-hand side for your list, shared documents, libraries. I mean, in addition to shared documents, you can create another library like I have for essential oils, and then for a discussion board here. And then if you delete anything, go ahead and click on the recycle bin to go ahead and restore it. If you don't want it deleted here, sit in the garbage can. Some of the basics here that you can see over in the navigation pane. I'm at my SharePoint site. Here's the navigation pane over to the left-hand side, and I'm looking in the list category. Over here I've got the autumn sales table that I uploaded. Let me come down here and click on the access button so I can go ahead and restore access. From my SharePoint database, I've uploaded the autumn sales table. So that's up here on my SharePoint site under the list category. You can see it right there. When I click on it, it opens up and it displays all the records within that table there. So if I go ahead and make changes, delete some of the information, in any case, collaborating with another coworker through SharePoint, let's say now I want to go ahead and export that, or better yet, the correct terminology is to import this table from SharePoint into my Access database. So let me go ahead and restore my Access program here, and this is the database I want to import it into. You could say, hey, you already have the table here, are you going to override it? No, because when you import something with the same name, Autumn Sales, it'll just tag a 1 to it. So Autumn Sales 1, import it again, Autumn Sales 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let's go ahead and import the Autumn Sales table. Come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to Import and Link, click on the More button, go down to SharePoint List, and then go ahead and type in your SharePoint address or the URL. And then down below, do you want to import the data into a new table, or do you want to go ahead and link to it? And it says if you link to it, Access will create a table that will maintain a link to the source data. Any changes you make in Access will be reflected in the source and vice versa. So we're just going to go ahead and completely import it. And if you wanted to, well, you got the other option. Let me go ahead and click Next. And then it displays all the things that I can import. Some of them probably aren't importable, but I know for sure that the Autumn Sales is because I exported it up into the SharePoint site. So all I have to do is go ahead and check it. And then you click on the drop down arrow, it says all items. I mean, you don't get a choice. So let's go ahead and leave it at that and then click Okie dokie. We can save the steps or close out, and there we go. There's my original here, and there's the one that I just imported, a copy of it. Well, it was a copy of it when we uploaded it, but like I said, if somebody else made changes to it, when I import it, it doesn't overwrite the original. Then I can double click, open it up, do some comparisons between the two, and if I'm satisfied, then I can delete this one and just rename that as my Autumn Sales table. There are a couple ways you can upload your database file to the SharePoint server. One way is to log into SharePoint, and then if you're on the home page here, come down below and click on Add Document. It'll add it to your Shared Documents folder here, which is also available as a link over in the navigation pane. If you don't want to add it to it, go ahead and click on another link, and it will load it up to that folder, or it'll have an Add Document link in that folder. In any case, I'm going to come down here and click on Add Document. Opens up a window and it says, okay, where's this file located on your desktop or your computer? Mine's in the Exercises folder on my desktop, so I can go ahead and click Browse. Come over here in the navigation pane, navigate to the desktop, scroll down to find my Exercises folder, double click, and then go ahead and choose the database by double clicking on it. It's got the address pointing to that file, so when I click OK, it'll take that file and upload it to the SharePoint site. I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. The other way to do it, if you've got a lot of databases that you want to upload over a period of time, like maybe a day or a week, or in any case, you just don't want to keep logging into SharePoint here. Let me go ahead and close out. You can upload it from the database by clicking on File, going down to Save and Publish, and then coming over here and selecting SharePoint. Now notice the text below where it says it'll share the database by saving it to a document management server. I would add folder, because when you double click on it, it wants to find a folder that we haven't created yet that's going to be linked or tied to our SharePoint site, that whatever I put in that folder will automatically upload to the SharePoint site. And what do I want to put or save into that folder? Well, it's my SharePoint database. But the folder hasn't been created yet, so I've got to do that. Let's go ahead and click Cancel. Come down here, click on the Start button, and we're going to create this folder. Click on Computer, and then we maximize it here. Up on the command bar, click on Map Network Drive, and then down below where it says Connect to a website that you can use to store your documents and pictures, click on that link. Now the wizard starts up and it says it can either help you sign up for a service, or if you already have one like we do, a SharePoint site, we can create a shortcut to it for you. Let's go ahead and click Next. That's the one that we want. And it says, where do you want to create this network location? It only gives us one choice here. And so, well, by default, let's just go ahead and click Next. And then it says, okay, give us the address to your SharePoint site. Go ahead and type it in. And again, if you don't have it, you want to get it from your IT person. Then click Next. Wait for it to connect. And then, of course, go ahead and type in your username and password and check Remember My Credentials. Click OK. Now that it hooked up, it says go ahead and type in a name for the shortcut. I like the URL. I mean, it's pretty descriptive. It's the SharePoint site for K. Kershaw for my business here. You can type in whatever you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And then it says, okay, a shortcut for this location will appear in the computer folder, and I'm in the computer folder, so when I click Finish, it'll appear in there, and also it'll open up this network location. When I click Finish, opens up the network location. It lists all the folders that I can save this database into that's on my SharePoint site. And then let me close out of that and click Cancel. It's also in my computer folder here. Double click on that, and it shows all the folders there as well. And I go ahead and close out. Now that we have that folder created, I can come up here, click on File again, go down to Save and Publish, come over here, double click on SharePoint, and if you don't see it, then you want to hover over Microsoft Access till you see that little triangle. Click it to point it down so we can see the network shortcuts, select the folder, and then over to the right, there it is. The shortcut, you see that little black arrow pointing up, it says it's a shortcut to the SharePoint site. Then when I double click on it, wow, love typing in all these passwords here. Remember My Credentials, click OK. And it opens up and it says, okay, here's the site content. Go ahead and select a folder that you would like to dump it into, and it says to double click to open up that location, double click. And then just go ahead and click Save. Now, for me, when I click Save, the collaboration between Access and my SharePoint server, it doesn't like it. It won't allow me to do it. It says, check the URL or your password. But the funny thing is that if I open up my SharePoint site and I have it open simultaneously while I'm in the database and trying to save something to it, it'll save it. Well, let me show you. Go ahead and click Save. It doesn't like it. Fine. Click OK. And then after I do that, it's now tied, this database here, where I can just go ahead and make changes and then save it to the SharePoint site if I'd like. Let me go open up Internet Explorer here. Go to the SharePoint site, type in my password. Remember, click Okie dokie. Okay, I'm here, right? I'm logged in. Now, when I go back to my database and I try to save it, which I can do it from here or click on File, go down to Save and Publish and double click on SharePoint, and then select Network and then double click on the shortcut. Of course, we're password happy. Then double click on Shared Documents and then click Save. Oh, it's happy. You see what I'm saying? So I've got my website open, logged into it, and then when I want to be able to publish it from my database here, it's okay with that. But if I close out of the SharePoint site and I try to publish it from my database, it's just not connecting. It doesn't like it. So how do I know it's published there? Well, I can click on File again, or click on File, come back and click on Save to SharePoint, and it's sitting right there. Before it was just Table Analyzer. Click Cancel. Let me go ahead and maximize this page here. Now I need to refresh it, so I can hit F5 on the keyboard, and there it is, SharePoint. Cool. So I got my SharePoint database. I can go ahead and click on it, and it says, do you want to go ahead and view it, read only, or edit this? Let me go ahead and right click and close out of my database there and select Edit, click OK. Of course, I need to log in again, click OK, and then wait for it, and then it'll go ahead and ask me to save a local copy if I'd like. So that's how we can go ahead and export it from SharePoint as a local copy, let's say on the desktop, and click Save. And then of course make any changes that I want, and when I'm finished, click Save to SharePoint site. In this bonus training video, I want to show you how you can run an update query, but based upon a value that somebody enters into a form field. And what I'm thinking here for this example is I got my book project table. Let me scroll over. I've got my retail price for these books. Let's say from time to time I want to be able to run an update or increase the retail price on these books by a percentage. I can go ahead and create a form that the front-end user, all you have to do is go ahead and type in a number to increase the retail price by, let's say 5%, and then hit the run button. I'm also going to add a button that when they click run, will run a macro, and that macro will go back and open up the update query, all this behind the scenes, and then apply that, well, if it's 5%, to the retail price. Not just multiply it, because if you multiply 5% by $39.95, you get the result of that, but it needs to be added on top of the base price here once we get that percentage of the original price. So to get started, let me go ahead and close out. The first thing I want to do is to create the update query. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Queries group, and then click on Query Design. I want to add the book project table, double click, close out. I click and drag so we can see all the fields there. Now this is all going to be based upon the retail price field or retail. Double click to add it down below. And then we want to convert this to an update query by coming up here on the Design tab to the Query Type group and then click on Update. Down below it adds the Update To field. Well, how are we going to update this? Well, we want to update the retail number in this query based upon the value that somebody enters into the form field, which, by the way, I have to create that form. But first of all, it's the query. So let me go ahead and right-click to zoom in on the Update To cell. Let me go ahead and type in, okay, see if this makes sense. I've got the retail field here in the query and the retail price for a book, one of them, let's say it's $10. Well, I want to take that and add it to the retail price after it's done finished multiplying the percentage that somebody enters into this field in the form increase form, which is a form object. Okay, let me try this again. So here's the address. We got to create a form. So we're looking at the objects form. We're looking at the specific name of the form, which I'm going to have to name it as you see it here, because it's going to go inside that form and look for this field. And I'll have to create an unbound text box that has this name, RETINC, for retail increase. So what it's doing is that in that form field, it's going to look in there, this update query, and whatever number that the front-end user punches in, like 4, is going to take 4, multiply it by the retail price, and then it's going to add it to the original retail price, because when you multiply it, you're going to get a percentage, and then you want to add that percentage on top of the original price. Okay, so I can do my calculations here and then point to where the value of this calculation is going to be coming from, in addition to the field that I'm going to be calculating that's already within the query here, the retail field. So let's go ahead and click OK, and then let's click Save and call it my UPD for update, retail inc, retail increase, and click OK. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and close out of here now to create my form. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Forms group, click on Form Design. And the first thing I recommend doing is saving your form and giving it the name, the exact same name that you have in your update query. As you recall, right-click, go to the Design view, and I have to right-click to zoom in. It's going to be FRM Increase, okay? So close out of here, click Save, FRM Increase. Okay, so it's going to be pointing to this form here from the update query, and then it's going to be looking for a field. What field? Well, let's go up here, click on the Design tab, to the Controls group, and add our unbound text box. Click on it, and then click in the grid down below, and there's our field. Double click on it. Let's name the field by coming over here on the Alt tab. And do you remember what the name of the field was? Well, it's going to be, let me delete this, call it RETINC for retail increase. Hit enter. It accepts the name. So you see what's going on in the update query. It's pointing to an object. What object? The forms. Within the forms, what form? Form increase. And then once it gets there, it's looking for the RET Inc. field here. And then when I go ahead and click on and change the view to the form view, and somebody types in that number and then hits the run button, it'll look in that address, pull that number out, and do the calculations as we just saw in the update query. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and double click in the label here, or triple click to select the text, because we want to be able to let people know what this unbound text box is for. And it's going to be for, hit enter, retail price increase. Let me hover over the upper left hand corner and click and drag the label over just to the left of the unbound text box. And then finally, all you need to do is to go ahead and add a button to the form here, because when they enter in the value, I need to have a macro that will run the update query. That will take that from that query. We'll look in the field here and be able to do the calculations. In any case, let's add that button. Come up here on the Design tab to the Controls group, click on the button, come down here, click on it, It's going to run the wizard. We don't want it. Click cancel because we're going to go ahead and tie this to a macro. But first of all, I don't like the name of the button here. Let's go ahead and double click inside it to select the text, delete it, and let's call it our run button. You can call it whatever you'd like. Hit enter. And then over here in the corresponding property sheet for the run button, let's go to the event tab because when somebody clicks it or on their click, let's click on the corresponding build button. We want it to run a macro. Double click on macro builder. And then here in the macro, on the design tab in the show hide group, I want to be able to show all actions because there are some actions that are only available when I select the all actions here. Like for example, the echo. Let me click in this field and type in ECH. There we go. Hit the tab key, it adds it. And as you recall in an earlier training video, when you have the echo on, when you're running a macro, it shows the results of the macro while it's running. I don't need to see how the sausage is made, metaphorically speaking, but just the end result. So let's go ahead and turn it off and say, no, we don't want to see what's going on with the macro. Just run it and give me the end result. Next, let's go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow, and we want it to open. Type in open Q for open query. Hit the tab key. What query do we want to open? Click on the drop-down arrow. It's our update retail increase. And then we want to view it, not in the data sheet, but in the design view. And we want it to be in edit mode. Okay, stay with me on this. We got a few more things we need to do. Let's go ahead and add the next action. We want to go ahead and type in run menu command. There we go. As soon as you see it, you don't have to type in everything, just till it comes up, then hit the tab key to add it. Then click on the corresponding drop-down arrow and type in run. And then finally, when it's done, let me go ahead and type in close window, hit the tab key. And what object do we want to close? Click on the drop-down arrow. It's going to be a query. What's the name of the query? Well, the one that we just opened up to execute it, to run it. And then for the save, we don't want to save it. Okay, so here's a quick explanation of what's going on. We don't want to see what's being worked, all the actions down below, so we set echo, don't show it, to no. And then we want to open up the query, the update query, in the design view in edit mode. And we want to be able to run that query, and then when it's done running the query, we want to be able to close out. Now, remember when it runs, it's going to take a look at the value that somebody typed in, that field, because the address points right to it. If they type in a 4, it's going to be 4%. They're going to take that, it's going to run it, and multiply it by the retail price field, and then take the percentage of that, the result of that multiplication, and add it on top of the original price, okay? And then when we're done running it, of course, we don't want to see it, have it, leave a mess here. Just go ahead and close out. I don't need to see it. I just need the end result. Okay. So come up here. Let's save it and go ahead and close out. And that's it. Let's go ahead and take it for a test drive. It's not very clean, but nonetheless, you get the idea. I'll let you clean it up. That's something easy. The coding was the hard part, and really it wasn't that hard. So let's come up here, click on the view button, and there it is. All somebody has to do is go ahead and type in 4. Hit the tab key. Now, when they type in 4, if I want it to be a percentage, then I can go ahead and right click, go back in the design view, select the unbound text box, go to the format tab, click on the format drop down arrow, and let's do %. Okay. Then save it, click on the view button. Let me delete it. Type in 5. There we go. The percent's being added. Now, before I run it, let's see what it looks like. The retail price. Let me open up the book project. Scroll over to the right. Okay, the retail price is $19.95. Let me go ahead and close out. Click run. Just like that. That was fast. Let's go back to the book project table. And for the retail price, it used to be $19.95. Now it's $20.95. Cool. Let me go ahead and close out, and that way we don't have to see how it's made, just the end result. Now, there's one caveat to this. If you get a prompt that says, are you sure you want to be able to run the update query? Remember, as you recall in the update query training video, come up here and click on the file, go down to options, click on client settings, and scroll down to where it says confirm. That's probably checked. It wants to confirm the action query. When I click run, I don't want it to pop up and spook the front-end user going, what did I do wrong? Let's just not have it confirmed, although it's nice to have it as a backup, so if they type in something and they hit run and they're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that, well, the confirmation will come up, in which case they can click cancel. But for me, I'd rather not have it being confirmed and trust that they'll do an accurate job. In this bonus training video, I want to show you how you can hide empty record labels. For example, I've got Bob Appelman, and he doesn't have an extension, so there's an empty record, but the label's still showing. If I want to go ahead and hide it to save ink and also space, because I'll show you how once you hide the label that you can collapse this vertically so you've got less space between this record and, well, corresponding records. To do that, let me right-click, go to the design view, and I want to delete the label for the extension. And you're like, well, why are you doing that? What I want to do is I want to go ahead and come up here on the Design tab to the Controls group and add, after I click on it, and bring it down here, the unbound text box. I don't want its corresponding label, so I'll delete that, because in this unbound text box I'm going to add the if function. If you don't know what the if function is, then you'll want to watch my Excel 2010 training video on the if function. But what it does is it performs a test, a logical test. It says, okay, if this extension field is empty, there's no record, then go ahead and don't display anything in this field here. But if there's something in there, then go ahead and display the text, and I can control what I want it to display. The text I want it to show is ext, the label. So to go ahead and add the if function to the unbound text box, you can go ahead and right-click on the border to bring up the property sheet, but mine's already up. In any case, just select it if you don't have it selected. Then come over here on the Alt tab. Let me scroll up to the top to the control source. Now this if function is going to be a bit lengthy, so I want to go ahead and zoom in on this cell here by right-clicking, going to zoom, and let me go ahead and type it in. Now I don't know if you can see that. Well, let me do this. Let me go ahead and right-click and open up Microsoft Word and paste the if function in here so you can see it in a larger font. This is what it looks like. And like I said, the if function performs a logical test. And actually within the if function we have two nested functions. And by breaking this down, you've got two commas. In front of the first comma, you have the logical test. If it passes the test and it's true, after the first comma, you have the result. And you've got two quotes with nothing in between them. That means show nothing. But if it fails the test here, this logical test here, and there's something actually within the extension field, then go ahead and display this text, ext. That's my label. Okay, so what is the logical test? Well, going by the order of operation, the first set of parentheses here, the inner set, we have the nz function. And the nz function allows an empty value if in this case the extension field is blank. So it's looking at the extension field, and if it's blank, then go ahead and allow an empty value. Now once it allows that, the empty value, then we have going out, the next order, the trim function, which the nz function is nested in. It says if there's any spaces, then go ahead and trim it, get rid of it, cut the extra fat or that space out of there. So if it truly equals, after it does all this, nothing, and you can see the double set of quotes with no space in between it, so there's a logical test. After doing all this, if it equals nothing, the extension field, then go ahead, and there's the true statement, display nothing within the label or within this unbound text box. But if it fails it and there's actually something within it, it's not empty, then go ahead and display the text ext. Okay, let's go ahead and close out of here and not save it, and then click OK, hit enter to make sure that Access accepts what I just typed in here in the control source field. And then what I need to do is to go ahead and resize my unbound text box here, so I can click and drag it over just to left of the extension data field. And then remember that when you add unbound text boxes, it always has an outline to it, a default gray outline. So to get rid of that outline, let's come up here, click on the Format tab, to the Control Formatting group, click on the Shape Outline, and let's go, well there it is, the gray right there. Let's select Transparent, and then right-click and go to Print Preview. Yay! There's no record here, so there's no corresponding label. But if there is a record, then it displays the text ext. Now I want to get rid of that gap in between Bob Appelman and the line down below, so I have less space between that record and the next. To do that, right-click, go to the Design view, and these two fields here, when they're empty, let's select the first one here, come over to the corresponding property sheet, scroll down, and we're looking for the can shrink here. When you select it, notice on the status bar, well, my pointer's in the way, it'll shrink the box vertically, so that way we got less space. Well, it'll shrink this one if I double click it to yes, but then this guy over here also needs to shrink if there's nothing in there. So back over here in the property sheet, let's go ahead and double click to shrink as well. So if these are both empty, collapse it and bring that up so we have a nice tight record. And let me right click and go to Print Preview. Yay, and less of a gap between this record and the next record. Access doesn't have a table of contents feature or an index feature for reports. However, you can use a table to store description and page numbers and then create a report that's based upon that table to use as your table of contents report. For example, I've got my customer orders report. Let me right-click on it, go to Print Preview, and you can see up at the top my first category and all the products that are tied to it. Let me go to page 4. There's my next category and all its corresponding products tied to that category. So what I want to do is I want to create a table of contents report that will give me the category name and the page number that I can find it on. Like, for example, Fort Tent found on page 4 and Screen Tent on page 6. So to create that, the first thing that we want to do is create a table called the table of contents, as I just mentioned, and then of course based upon that table we'll have a report. It's a little bit more than creating a table. It's going to require a little bit of coding, but if you'll be patient with me, we'll be able to get through this pretty quickly. So let me go ahead and close out a Print Preview. Let's create that table. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Tables group, click on Table Design, and we're going to add 2 fields. First of all, the first field, Category, and we'll leave it as the data type text. And then down below in its corresponding field properties, let's go ahead and change from Indexed No to Yes, no duplicates. And you can see no duplicates prohibits duplicate values in the field. In other words, I've got one category. I don't want that same category listed again just one time. So next one I want to add is the page number and change the data type. Let me type in NUM, hit the tab key for the number data type field. And then when I'm finished, let me go ahead and click Save and call it my, hit Enter. Now it says it can't find a primary key field. Do you want to go ahead and create one now? No. This one doesn't require a primary key field. Now you're probably asking, how do we get the data from this report, like the categories, the name, and also the corresponding page number that it's found on, over into the table of contents here, where we can base a report upon this table here to print off to be able to list the category and the page number that it's found on. Well, we're going to create a module, and in this module add some coding that tells it to look in this report, take the information, dump it into here, and then of course after we do that, then we can generate that report based upon the data found in the table of contents here. So to create that module, before I do that, be sure that you follow everything that I'm doing here, because in that module, when it comes to coding, it's going to be referring to the actual name of the table here, table of contents. So if you go watching this training video, I'm going to call it table of C. Well, I guess that's okay, but when it comes to the coding, you better make sure that in there it says table of C, but here I'm going to be referring to it as the actual name here, table of contents. So let's go ahead and get started, close out, but that's a disclaimer there. To create the module, come up here, click on Create, go to Macros and Code, click on Module, and then what you want to do is you want to type in some code here, or better yet, if you got the instructor notes, go ahead and copy and paste it as what I'm going to be doing here. And there we go. Let me scroll up so you can see how much code we've added. Now the coding that I added when I pasted it, I didn't paste the lines in here. The Visual Basic or the module did that. It said, okay, here's a break. I can see it. Let me go ahead and add a line. So don't worry about adding lines. Just go ahead and type it as you see it, or like I said, look to the instructor notes and copy and paste it. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you I understood all this code here. What I did is I looked at it and broke it down and created my own variation of it. So we've got generic code here, and you can read the green comments that tells us what's happening here and what the code's going to be doing. Like down here it says open the table. What table? Well, it has the table of contents. And then within the table of contents, it's going to be referring to the category field. So that's why it's important that when you create the table of contents, that you name it just like I named it, table of contents. Unless you call it table of C, then be sure to come in here. And also up here, wherever you see table of contents, and replace it with your name, table of C, table of C. Well, you get the idea. And then coming down below, you can see the rest of it here. Like I said, you can type it in, or you can copy and paste it in. And then make sure you update these fields with your names if you're not using the exact same names, the name of the table and the name of the fields within, like category and page number, with your names. When I'm finished, let's go ahead and click Save and call it the TOC for Table of Contents. Click Okie dokie. When we're done, come up here, click on File, go to Close and Return to Microsoft Access. So Now we've got the report, we've got the code that's going to look in the report, take the information, dump it into the table of contents. So I guess the next thing that we want to do is to create a report based upon this table here so we can pull that information and be able to print it off. So let's come up here on the Create tab, go to the Reports group, click on Report Design. Up in the page header, you can go ahead and type in the name of your report here, like table of contents, or put in the company logo, whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to keep it simple here, because you already know how to clean up the report and add things to it, make it fancy, as we did in earlier training videos. Now this report is going to be based upon the table of contents table, so I need to bring up the property sheet for the report here, and I can do that by double-clicking really fast on this little square here, and it brings up its corresponding property sheet with the report selected. Or just come up here on the Design tab to the Tools group, click on Property Sheet, click on the drop-down arrow, and select Report. Then come over here on the Alt tab to the Record Source group, click on the drop-down arrow, and select our table of contents. Okay, let me go ahead and close out of it now. And then next we want to be able to add the category field and the page number field, those two fields from the table here, to this report. So I want to come up here, Design tab, again to the Tools group, click on Add Existing Fields, and I'll just go ahead and click and drag category there, and click and drag page number there. I'm going to delete their corresponding labels here and just put category right there, and maybe page number about right there. Maybe make category just a bit bigger there. In any case, you get the idea. Go ahead and close out of here, scroll down to the bottom, hover over the top of the page footer bar until I can see two black arrows pointing up and down that I can click and drag to stretch that up so I can avoid all this gap in between each record here, or each category that's being pulled over. Then when I'm finished, let me go ahead and click Save, call it my RPT. Table of Contents report, click OK, and almost done. Let's go ahead and close out of here. Next, we need to go back to the original report so we can do a little bit more coding so we can tie it into the module here. And to do that, let's right click on it, go to the Design view. A few things here. Let's go ahead and bring up the property sheet for the entire report by double clicking off in a blank area here, and it brings it up. Go ahead and click on the Event tab, and then we want to find On Open, and in this field we're going to go ahead and type in equals init, and there it is, TOC. If you see it, just go ahead and hit the tab key, and then be sure to close the parentheses here so it says equals init TOC, open close parentheses, then hit enter to make sure it accepts it. So when it opens, it's going to go ahead and initiate the table of contents here, the coding found over in the module, and we're not done yet. Let's go ahead and select the category header, and then come back over here in the property sheet where it says on print, and we're going to add in this code. Let me go ahead and zoom in on the field here, where it's going to go ahead and update the table of contents with the category here found in this report. So type it like you see it, go ahead and click OK, be sure to hit enter to make sure it accepts it, and then one more, down on the page footer here, go ahead and select that bar, and then over in the property sheet, on the Event tab where it says on print, let me zoom in on that field, let's go ahead and add the following code. There it is, equals update page number, open and close parentheses. Click OK, hit enter to make sure it likes it. When we're done, be sure to save your work. Go ahead and close out, and that's it. So with all the coding in place, and like I said, it's a lot of coding, but if you just simply follow the logic that I used here when it came to naming the table here and updating the code within the module to make sure it pointed to the table, the name of it, table of contents, and also the fields, I think you'll be fine. Just follow along, and then now to go ahead and test this, let's right click, go to Print Preview, and what you need to do to actually generate and get all the categories with the corresponding page numbers in this report dumped into the table of contents, which the table of contents report is based upon, is that you actually have to open up this report. Not only do you have to open it up, but you have to go to the end of the report, because when you go to the end of the report, down at the bottom in the navigation bar when you click on last page, when you go to the end, you see how it quickly went through each page? It automatically, when you went through it, the coding said, quickly, let's look at page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you don't scroll through all those pages or go to the end, it's not going to be able to view the whole report and pull in the corresponding category and their page numbers that they're found on. So that brings up a good point. If the category used to be on page 5, and you made some changes, add some more records, now it's on page 6, anytime you do updates, always open up your report here and go to the last page, so the coding here can look at it and then correctly update that in the table of contents table. So when we're done, let me close the print preview, and we open up our table of contents report, right-click and go to Print Preview. Click to zoom in. It actually has the correct page number. Cool, huh? Accessories is on page 1, Fort Tent 4, Screen Tent 6. There's your table of contents. Well, you know how to go ahead and clean up this report so it looks good, but the challenging part, I think, was just the coding.